Okay, next job. This is all under here. And this is all the seats and hunks of upholstery. And basically, we need to disassemble this, keeping track of everything, so that we can easily use it for patterns later on. But the big thing is that I don't want to take it into the house like this. It's just full of mouse nests. And we had these little mice falling out of the bottom onto the floor when we pulled that coupe in here. So yeah, I'm going to get my boys to put their gloves on, and then we're going to take this apart, and as we do that, we'll throw all the mouse garbage into the bin. Carefully marking, carefully cutting apart and removing so that we can use them for patterns. Now, not that necessary. We could do it with just measuring and stuff, but it's just quicker if you have the whole pattern. So these are all hog ringed on. We're going to take those off with some pliers, and we'll cut some of the seams, maybe only if we have to. Otherwise we'll leave them together. We might cut them when we go to sew them or make patterns. And the other thing is I want to make sure that I have all of the material that I need. I brought a bunch from Thailand to do all this really nice material, but I better double check. Make sure we have enough for those armrests, front seat, back seat, both bench seats. Yeah, okay, let's give her. And let's dig into fixing these seats. Now, these old things, they're pretty decrepit. Hinges are bent, broken. Got to straighten them up, try and make them stand up even. Yeah, lots of cutting, welding. And then we get to sandblast the seat springs and all that kind of stuff, trying to clean the rust off them, not to mention the mouse pee. And sand gets in your neck terribly. I love it. And then some epoxy primer, because that's going to just seal it and cover it, and that'll be fine. We won't have to paint it with anything else besides that. Put the seats on top of each other, these parts, these spring parts, so that when you spray, you're spraying right through them basically, and some of them will get on the other one underneath. Maybe save some paint. And then build a bumper stop for the tipping seats, right? People get into the back. It's got to land on the frame with a nice quiet thud. Piece of rubber, a big round steel washer, and screw it in there. I found this hard on the fingers because, yeah, these springs are tight. And when you get all the springs fixed up and everything, and then put these kind of inner cloths, this cotton stuff, back in where it used to be, I think it's supposed to keep the springs from squeaking and that kind of stuff. These hog ring pliers and, stretching and all that kind of stuff is kind of hard on the fingers too. But in the end, we've got the foundational parts of these seats ready to go, ready to be rebuilt. And I'm happy with it because, well, there's choices, right? You can either change all the seats in the car, or you're going to have to rebuild the old ones. And to change them, I mean, you think about it, you could put bucket seats in the front. A lot of guys do that. That would be cool, but they'd have to be tipping ones, so you can still get guys in the back seat of the coupe. Only a two-door car, right? And then the back seat, I mean, what would you do? You'd find a seat that was kind of close and then try to cut it, change it. I don't know. Better just rebuild the old ones in this case. And I kind of like the idea of the bench seats. The coupe is going to be so classy anyway. It doesn't need bucket seats. And it's my wife's car. So the seats are going to be nice, cozy leather and some cloth material and lots of foam padding. And I'm going to put heated seats in the front. And if you probably already watched the video, the episode that I did on making the front seat slide back and forth electrically, that's pretty classy too, But you have to make that decision with all of your parts. Are you going to rebuild? Or are you going to remanufacture? And there's a lot of that now because you've got 3D printers, which are absolutely amazing. You've got CNC cutters, so you can cut out some beautiful steel parts, weld the great MIG and TIG welding, now even laser welding. Oh man, I'd love to have one of those, maybe someday. Maybe sell a car and buy a laser welder. But the other option then is parts off the shelf, which there's a lot of reproduction parts, right, which you can get. Maybe possibly even some original parts for sale if you really scrounge and look around. But that's the decision, that's the choice. And for me, I don't know. And it's not just that it's too easy to pull parts off the shelf. I mean, like order new parts from a company and just pay through the nose, right? Get them shipped and then just bolt them in, right? And that's one way of doing it. But to me, it's not that it's too easy to do that, but it's kind of outside of the culture of really car building, of building cars. I think that's the culture of producing resellable cars for profit, right? Where you just make them beautiful and perfect, and you buy a chassis and all of the IFS and rear independent suspension, and you buy an LS motor and a supercharger, whatever. You put all that stuff together, then paint it real nice, and everything new upholstery, and then you sell it and try and make a profit. But that's not what I'm trying to do. I need to drive like this car here. I've been driving it since I was 18 years old. That looks like a long time, right? It is 50 years maybe, yeah. And so just about. And so to me, the key is I made so much stuff in that car, even the gauges. You don't have to buy gauges for this project we're working on. I've been looking at Dakota gauges. Are going to be like $1,500, something like that. Man, oh man. For that old car, I got gauges out of the farm truck. It was in the junkyard. It was a 55 Dodge. That's where I got the front axle for it too. They welded the brakes on, Camaro brakes, disc brakes on the front, rebuilt the gauges in so they would fit in the 29 Dodge dash and all that kind of stuff. And you do that for like next to nothing. And there's a certain pride and satisfaction that comes with that, because now you're driving a car that didn't cost an arm and a leg. And even at that, you sell it, you're probably not going to get your value out of it. And so many guys that are building cars know that. You put way more into it than what you can get out of it. If you sell a project that's only half done, you're only going to recover about half of your investment. I mean, it's pretty sad like that. So actually, that's a good way to do, buy a project that already has a bunch of stuff purchased for it, and some of the work done, the engine rebuilt and all that kind of stuff already. Yeah, you're getting a good deal, right? So I think you pick your lane and you run in it. And the lane that I'm running in is do it yourself. And that's why I've learned how to do pretty well everything. And I need to still hone my skills, painting skills especially. Right now it's kind of hit and miss. On a lucky day, I get a great paint job. Yeah, on an unlucky day, I don't know what I did wrong. But keep honing those skills and keep studying. The thing is, now it's so easy to learn stuff. There's videos and all kinds of stuff that are showing up on your feed. You can search them on Google, whatever, YouTube, and learn just about everything. Now, there's a lot of garbage on there too, and a lot of people will be steering you wrong. But if you get some guy who's a professional talking about how to do it professionally, it gives you some really good ideas. So do that, and don't be afraid to tie into rebuilding stuff or manufacturing stuff on your own that you need for your car. And I've manufactured like the what do you call the cowl lights on this car. One was broken. I actually carved one out of steel, welded some bits of pipe and stuff together and ground it and, made it so nobody knows. Now it's steel instead of pot metal. So you can do that. I've been making door handles and things like that because I found that I buy door handles, the reproduction door handles, like on my 42 Chev truck, and they just all bent, the windows and everything. You crank the window and the handle bends. You're like, man, oh man, I paid $36 for that handle. It's better to make your own in some cases. Yeah, it takes some time, but man, build it out of steel, take it and get it chrome plated. Doesn't cost much. Well, I get my chrome plating done in Thailand or go to Mexico, do something like that, right? When you're on holidays, take it with you and get it done in a chrome plating shop, and just for a few dollars overseas. So yeah, there's a lot of things that you can do to just really keep that cost down, but it's all about your mentality and determined to run in that track, and that's where I'm going to stay in my lane.